from the neighborhood. So I would want to, again, see more of a black and white. Average unit size, I don't
Hello. Magic.
Thank you very much, Chris. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order. We're okay. No, we're good. And we're still on community service recognition, and Commissioner Casebeer would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Chairperson Hall. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank and congratulate Chef Ian Trenwith for his wonderful service to how many kids? Why don't you step forward, Ian? 10 young people, high school age kids that attended classes once a week for how long?
I think we had 17 weeks in all.
17 weeks.
She's right behind me.
Yeah. And this is Anita Ho. Yes.
My right hand, sometimes my left. And my wife, who's sitting back here,
Oh,
has been my right hand for 47 years, and without her, I couldn't have done what I was doing for Anita.
yes.
My wife, Diane, also deserves recognition, even if it's only from me.
Okay, and could you please introduce your two students who were present today?
Yes, surely. Here you go, ladies.
Yeah, step right on up.
Step right up here, don't be shy.
Yeah,
I can introduce them because they've got their aprons on.
yes.
And you'll see they're very clean. Would you like to say who you are? I won't introduce, I'll let you introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Angelica Dominguez,
And where do you attend school?
San Marcos.
Good.
Yeah, and I'm Veronica Dominguez, and I go to San Marcos as well. I went to San Marcos as well.
Thank you ever so much, all of you, for Healthy Options for Teens Culinary Arts Program.
Thank you.
Great.
We appreciate it.
Chair Larimore Hall, if I could just add, the Park Foundation, their board was very appreciative of the efforts of Chef Ian and all of the young people. They catered the park fundraising event whereby we raised $7,000 for summer camp scholarships for children in our community. So on behalf of the Park Foundation, I really want to thank all of you and all of your compatriots who were there that evening, and for all your hard work and the very, very tasty food. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to Commissioner Committee Assignment Reports. Who would like to kick it off? Okay.
Okay, very briefly, I attended the Street Tree Advisory Committee on Thursday, June 10th. And in addition to the items before you this afternoon, the committee also reviewed Plaza de la Guerra Infrastructure Improvement Project Concept Plan. My understanding is that this, an original plan came before the commission and other commissions and committees within the city, and also took public comment back in 2007. And this, this plan is a revised concept that addressed that. So the committee made some comments on that also.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiscombe. Commissioner Burns?
Thank you. Thank you. Couple of items. The Front Country Trails Multi-Jurisdictional Task Force met in early June, and on June 5th was National Trails Day, and about 25 to 30 of us went up to San Isidro Trail and did trail work. I was happy to be able to help, and unfortunately got a nice case of poison oak, but that was my own fault, not nothing else. I should have worn a long sleeve shirt. And then also with the Park Foundation, with the Ian's group, it was at the Condor Express, and it was very nice that the Condor Express donated that boat for the fundraiser for that we raised about $7,000. The last meeting of the Arts and Craft Advisory Board I was at, the issue that they're dealing with is a lot of the artists are getting older, and we're trying to figure out ways to find a way to have more handicap parking. And that, I think, will be sent to the traffic department, and they're trying to figure out how we can do that, because we have an older group of artists than we did 40 years ago. So that's what's going on in my little world.
Commissioner Casebeer?
Yes, I attended the Lower West Side Advisory Council this last month, and we'll be having a report from Pete Leva and Susan Young about our most successful block party. I also attended the Special Olympics Torch Run Luncheon held in the Sunken Gardens, and was very pleased to see Jose Castrillon honored as the Special Olympic Athlete of the Year. And that's my report.
Would just report that Chair Longstreet and I attended the meeting of the working group on restructuring the neighborhood and outreach services committees, the committee structure, as well as departmental arrangements. And the conversation is moving forward. It's a very democratic process. There are a lot of stakeholders and a lot of stakeholders with very strong opinions. So it's not going to be a fast process, but democracy takes a little time, which is good. Would anyone like to add anything to any of their reports before we move on? No. Great. Let's move on to commission and staff communications.
Chair, staff does not have any items to report at this time that won't be covered on items on the agenda.
Youth Council report.
Thank you. There's a brief report today due to the summer where we had some youth council members come off due to graduation and off to college, and now we're going to have a brand new youth council next year. I'll just start off with saying that their first meeting will be July 1st at 5:15, and this year was a hard decision to pick the youth council. We had 22 applicants apply for 9 vacancy positions, and it was roughly hard for us to choose, but we're still working with staff to choose exactly which youth council members we want so that we could have a good representation for all the neighborhoods. And we have 4 appointments that we made, and so we'll be looking for the 5 that we have left with staff. So it was kind of a tough decision, and so we're still working around there. They'll be having their orientation this Friday, I believe, at the Teen Center. And so if you want to stop by, it'll be at the Teen Center. Not too quite sure exactly, but staff may know. And then along with, we'll hopefully have the new members hopefully attend the July or August meeting that we'll be having. And then during late August, they'll be having their annual training. And so that's another thing we'll keep you posted on next meeting. And then lastly, the Youth Council just still has their concerns about the Teen Center and the teen programming, and we'll continue to work with administration on that. And so that's about it for their Youth Council report.
Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner Burns.
Yeah, just one question. The meeting at 5:15 on July 1st, will it be in here or at Teen Center?
I believe it will be in here. Or excuse me, at the Davis Center.
So at the Davis Center or the Teen Center?
Davis Center.
The
right
Davis
across from
Center.
DC.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. Are there any, do any commissioners or Intern Torres Santos have any questions about any of the summary of council actions that was included in our packet? No, seeing none. We jumped ahead and did the minutes first, so let's move on to the Street Tree Advisory Committee items.
Chair Lermo Hall and Commissioners. The first item is 830 Calle Cortita. The request is to remove the 2 leaning eucalyptus trees in this photo. The trees are actually located on the Fellowship Road side of the property. There are concerns that the trees will fall into the roadway. The Street Advisory Committee, when they visited the site, noted several young oak trees underneath these eucalyptus trees. The recommendation before you is by Street Advisory Committee and staff to approve these removals. The Street Advisory Committee is advising that they would urge the applicant to consider removal of all the eucalyptus so that the oaks could thrive. But the motion before you, or the item before you, is the 2 leaning trees, and Street Advisory Committee staff recommend approval.
Commissioner Casebeer.
I move to adopt staff's recommendation for the removal of the eucalyptus trees at 830 Calle Cortita.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'd second that motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes. I also think that if Commissioner Casebeer would be okay with it, I think that we should stipulate that they do protect the oak trees during the removal. I think that was an important item for the committee.
That's fine to add that.
Is there any opposition to amending that motion the way it was described? No? Okay, great. So the motion's on the table to approve, concur with staff and the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation, adding a stipulation that the applicant work to protect the oaks in the area. Vote would be in order at this point. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Chair Lermo Hall and Commissioners, the second item is 512 through 518 Bath Street. The Housing Authority of the City of Santa Barbara is redeveloping this site, and I'll read you a brief project description so you understand what's going on there. The project consists of demolition of an existing 2-story apartment complex and carport, and the construction will be of a 2- and 3-story apartment complex that will house very low income and low income housing. It would be 53 studio apartments, and as part of this project, they are also working to reestablish the creek that runs behind this property. The trees in question are 2 large yucca trees and a Pittosporum Victorian box tree located adjacent to the sidewalk. The Street Advisory Committee determined that the development was appropriate for the site and recommend that these be approved. They also commented that they would like to see additional native trees placed within the landscape plan to transition from the creek into the project. Their motion is to approve on the condition that the appropriate review body approves the landscape plan.
Is there a motion on this item?
Yes, I'd move to concur with the committee and staff for the removal of the 3 trees at 512 to 518 Bath Street.
Is there a second?
Yeah, let me second it and also ask staff a question. Is there any opportunity to actually move the trees, or are these trees that are in a position where they're really not worth trying to save?
Chair Limmer-Hall and Commissioner Burns, the trees are located very close to the wall, and they may transplant, but the nature of these trees, they are so heavy, it's extremely expensive to relocate these trees. And the third tree, the Victorian box, is not worth relocating. It's nearing the end of its life and wouldn't be very successful.
Are there further questions or comments? Discussion? No? Okay. So all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. The next item, we do have a speaker. But Mr. Downey, if you can start us off, and then John, am I pronouncing it right? Fritchie? Yeah. Okay, great.
Chair Limmer-Hall and Commissioners, the tree at 724 Miramonte Drive is the one with the arrow pointing to it is the original request to remove the tree. The concerns are that the tree might fall onto the adjacent property. The tree's actually located on a neighbor's property, but Mr. Fritchie has permission from that neighbor to remove that if he gets permission from the city to do so. He's also subsequently talked to the neighbor about the second tree because there were some comments at Street Tree Advisory Committee about that tree, and she's willing to allow him to remove that tree. That is not part of the request today, however. The concerns are many. The fact that the tree leans, the tree is at the top of the mesa where it receives our highest winds in the city. There was, in the past, some landslides on a portion of this property related to the soils and the water movement. And concerns are that if all those factors joined together at once, this tree could fall onto the home. Upon my inspection of the tree, there's no indication the tree's moved, or there's no indication of any problems with the trees. It's healthy and rooted well, and the Street Tree Advisory Committee and staff recommend that the commission deny this removal, however, allow Mr. Fritchie to revisit this in less than 1 year if he provides an arborist report stating that the tree is likely to fall.
Mr. Fritchie? You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes to discuss risk. I'm sorry. Would you tilt that picture so that it's not that angle? Because here is the real pictures, and I resent the fact that your staff has tilted that picture not to show the angle. I'm going to submit to you, because I was asked to by your staff to submit a soils report. And here are pictures, documents of what's going on that hill. And first, let me say, I have 2 degrees, one in horticulture, one in soil science. I was hired by the Washington State College to teach soils while I was a candidate for a master's degree in soils. I have some background. I have lived on this hill for 45 years. I have seen this grow. The house below me suffered a $100,000 slide, took part of my property. The city had them build a wall. That wall then resulted in a second slide, which you'll see there. And that was a very little slope. You'll also see in the papers that I passed you, my neighbor paid $300,000 to repair his property from the slides. This soil, as you look through those pictures, is pure sand, a very fine sand. Water seeps from the top of the hill coming down. Now, all that makes great sense to me. I went to the state of Florida, who has a lot of palm trees, and one of their recommendations is, are there utility wires? Okay, don't plant under them. And this is what we got. Those trees looked great 45 years ago, okay? Since then, we have a great hedge, if you will, of trees along there. The two owners are concerned. As far as I know, you have no citizens' complaints after posting the tree. When I looked at how your organization is laid out and what I had to present, your street committee is landscape architects and one arborist. None of those people address the issue back where you are concerned with your own ordinance, which when you get down to it, let me just quote, that the character of the immediate neighborhood with respect to the forestation will not merely be affected by the proposed removal. I can't believe that this is going to affect the neighborhood. The topography of the building site renders removable desirable. That you cannot answer with landscape architects and with a tree person, an arborist. There's no way. When I went to hire an arborist just to meet your rules. The guy's quoting $160 an hour and 6 hours of his time, but he can't address the soils.
Mr. Fritz, you should wrap up.
Yeah. Frankly, sir, this is my home. You people are taking the risk. I have presented a soils report. Your own staff says they don't know how to read it. They did not go find a geologist to interpret it. But that staff report very carefully details the soil and the water moving from the top of the hill down. And when I bought that house, we had to go in and put French drains all the way around it just to protect it. Because whoever built it, believe it or not, put a pool above the house grade. And the water from the pool overflow, or the water moving through the hillside, and underneath the house when we bought it were pustules where water came up. That hill is a disaster, especially when the house below cut so deeply. And they are now in a huge reconstruction of their front yard trying to take care of the problem for the future. And the original builder for that house had to jack it up to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions? Would someone like to make a motion? How would you like to proceed?
A couple of questions. When I first read the report, I realized I didn't have a copy of the geology part. And when I went and looked at the site, I could see the tree was leaning. We made a comment that we assumed that we would consider denying the removal, but give them more opportunities if they could find more information out if it might be likely to fail. My thought is we have an applicant who seems to be very knowledgeable on soils, and his representation is that it's going to cause damage. One question is, if we say we think it's okay, and it falls down next week, are we liable, or who is liable? And why don't I ask staff that? I don't know where we are there. I haven't been asked that question before.
Mr. Down?
Chair Larimore Hall and Commissioner Burns, I'm not an expert on liability, so I really don't feel comfortable commenting on that. I will comment on when you assess trees for hazards, you have to observe a visible defect in the tree itself, which precludes it to fall over. I was not able to observe any defects in the tree itself to do that, so I cannot make a determination that the tree itself is hazardous. Excuse me. Regarding liability, that would be up to the city attorney's office to determine.
Other comments, questions? Yes.
I think, Mr. Downey, the commission might benefit from some of the discussion that went on amongst the committee members at the site. Can you comment on the soils that the tree is located in? The applicant did provide a hole, so you could have a look at the type of soil, and that in relation to the tree. Let's see. Well, let's start with that.
Chair Lerma Hall and Commissioner Wiscombe, the tree is growing in a sandy soil, very sandy soil. This is the natural soil that this tree grows in, however, so without further information about the stability of that particular soil at that location, I would be unable to come to any finding other than the tree's growing in its nearly natural environment, and there are no signs that the tree has done anything but stand and grow perfectly in the orientation that it's grown. We have not denied that the tree leans, and the perspective of the photo doesn't show the entire lean, but trees like this lean all the time at a much greater angle and stand for 100 years. So the lean by itself is not an indicator of whether the tree is a hazard.
Commissioner Wiscombe.
I have probably one more question for Mr. Downey, and then I will also have a comment. My other question is, I believe there was some discussion amongst the committee members about the location of the landslides that occurred on this site in relation to the location of this tree. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Chair Lerma Hall and Commissioner Wiscombe, the landslides occurred behind the home, downhill from this location, and the trees are located in front of the home. My reading of the geology report, which is quite a long document, was that he did comment on the movement of waters in the area, but it did not identify the specific area as having been looked at. So with the length of the document and the fact that it really covered other areas, it didn't seem appropriate to reproduce that for you. The committee was concerned that the slides happened on a different part of the property, well away from these trees.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment along those lines, or is this closed?
We are in, the floor is ours, but I will give you 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Now?
Yes.
Okay. There is definite moving on the upper part of the property, okay? I have a big retaining wall down along my property. We have removed the sidewalk that drained the wrong way, poured a new one, and I am now seeing movement like that, okay? We're going to go in and try to solve that problem. Things are moving on that hill. I dug a hole almost 3 feet deep so that people could look at the root, look at the soil that I pulled out. Only one person from that committee even looked in the hole. No one touched the soil that I showed. And it's the same thing that you see in that picture where I went down 4 feet on my property above the big slide, brought up that white sand. And I don't care how anybody cuts it. The neighbors have put a wall on the other side of the tree to cut its roots ability to go. I've got a cement driveway on my side. Nobody can tell what the root system is like. I think, in all honesty, I have presented good facts, and you, the city, are at risk. That's my opinion, and that's what attorneys are for. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Case-Beer.
I will make a motion to adopt staff's recommendation to deny the removal of the Washingtonia robusta at 724 Miramonte Drive.
I'm sorry, my hearing is very poor. Would you?
I'm just putting the motion on the floor to adopt staff's
Okay,
recommendation.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Seeing there no second, the motion dies for lack of second. Commissioner Wishcombe?
Yeah, this is a really tough one, and I hope you understand that because we all take our jobs very seriously here. I'm uncomfortable with the applicant providing an arborist report that indicates the tree is likely to fall. I think that is very, very restrictive. And I'm wondering if there would be less money and time spent by the applicant if an arborist said that the soil conditions may deem the tree a hazard during an extreme wind event and create the risk of falling. I think that type of language is maybe much easier for an arborist in a lot less than 6 hours' time at $160 an hour to determine if they feel that the tree is a hazard and may fall. So I guess I'd just like to put that forward for discussion maybe and see. I think the wording maybe needs to be changed.
Commissioner Burns?
What I see is that we're in a situation where we and staff are asked to do something that's out of the ordinary. But what I see is in this area, we've got at least 2 landslides that we know about in the last 10 or 15 years, and we don't know how many years there's been landslides there. While the tree is in sandy soil, and sandy soil is fine in most places, and in that tree area it is, we've got a potential landslide. From a risk point of view, I would err to remove the risk. Either we postpone this and get more information on potential geological damage in the area, or we say let's remove the tree. Let's override the street tree advisory and staff and let him remove the tree. That's where I'm coming from.
Commissioner Burns, would you mind picking one of those directions and making a motion?
Sure. I move that we override the Street Tree Advisory Committee and staff and allow the applicant to remove the tree.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on this specific motion? Is staff wanting to say something? I saw an eyebrow twitch. Is there additional information?
Chair Larimore Hall and commissioners, it seems to me the real question perhaps is not whether the tree itself is a hazard, but really whether a change in soil conditions would change the condition of the tree. And that's really, if there is further erosion or something would happen, whether there's a potential for that to occur in this location. Another way of looking at the issue. It's not so much the tree today, but what could happen if there was a change in the soil.
Okay. There is a motion on the table. Is there further discussion? Otherwise, we'll move to a vote. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Opposed.
The ayes have it.
Yeah, I thank you, and I'll make one offer. I'd be glad to plant a tree on my side about the location of the palm if you indeed just ask your tree committee to suggest an evergreen that is miniature so it won't get up into the power lines and with leaves that hang on in 40, 50 mile an hour winds.
We will pass that request for a recommendation on to the committee. It's a very specific request.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Fritchie. Let's move on to the item D. And we do also have two speakers, but Mr. Downey, would you like to introduce this?
Chair Mahal and Commissioners, the site is 1628 Overlook Lane. They're requesting to remove both the star pine and the Mexican fan palm in this photo. Part of the reasons that they had requested this are due to a proposed development at the property where they're going to expand the garage adjacent to the palm. The applicant just the other day provided that plan to me, and the Street Advisory Committee was not able to review that. They had requested this be postponed until they had an opportunity to review those materials, and staff supports that recommendation. However, if you would like more information about the trees, I'll continue. The other concerns are that the star pine has been trimmed by the utility company on one side. The tree is overly large for the lot, and does not provide as much benefit as several smaller trees that they're proposing. The committee did have concerns about the size of the star pine next to the utility lines and the need to continue to prune it away from those lines to have it look like it does. But they were not convinced that the tree is too large for the site, and they felt that the tree was, both trees are skyline trees and important to the area, but they did want to review those plans. So therefore, they recommend you postpone a decision until such time that they can review those plans.
Okay, we have two speakers on this item, Sally Vanata, followed by Florence Formby. Sally, are you here? Yeah.
Am I close enough to it?
I think
Me?
so.
Okay. We go dog walking by there every day with our dogs, and recently one of the pine cones from that tree fell right in front of my dog and missed its face and eye by just inches. And so I looked them up, and they can weigh up to 15 pounds. This one wasn't quite that big, but it sure scared me. The courthouse has one of these trees, and when they see that there's a big cone, I don't know how they do because I can't see them up there, they put a barrier and a warning sign around by it because they don't want it to fall on anybody. So we'd love to see it go. If you walk along there, the two ugliest trees there are with this little house and these things, but that's aside from the point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Florence, is Florence here? You can wait till you're up closer to the mic so we can hear you. Go ahead.
I'm a neighbor, and I bought some photographs of it, and for me it is not so much the look of the tree, but it's a habitat for wildlife. Yeah. And the tree is home to red-tailed hawks. They've been mating there. They've been coming there. There are owls coming at night. And it's a tall tree, I admit that. But of all the trees that are planted in Santa Barbara, it's probably one of the safest for high winds because it comes from a little island in near Australia and New Zealand, and it likes to grow rather deep, and it can withstand winds up to 80 miles without a problem, as I understand it. And I really would like to keep this habitat for animals here in Santa Barbara, and therefore I would like to be against the removal of this tree. I've also spoken with our neighbor on the other side of my house, and he asked not to remove the tree because it is really an ugly eyesight to have that post to look at without a tree. Now, if there would be a tree that probably would be replacing it as tall as that utility pole, he would probably be fine with it. But I really think we should reconsider habitat for animals around here, and the hawks love it. The owl is very happy there. So that is really all I have to say, but I think it is a perfectly safe tree. They don't bend over, they are deep-rooted, and they are certainly not a hazard. I agree that the utility company has done a bad job, but you see it from this way, you don't see it from where, for instance, where I live above. Looking, I have the photographs to prove it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Formby.
I have a question, Ms. Formby. Do you have any concerns about the palm tree, the removal of the palm
tree? Not really. They withstand. I mean, the palm tree, I would give up the palm tree for saving the other one.
Oh.
I like trees, and I have palm trees in my own garden.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions or comments? Would someone like to make a motion to postpone?
Just that thinking it would be postponed, I didn't do a site visit, and I normally try to do site visits, so I honestly would like to postpone. I move we postpone this till the next hearing so we can do a site visit.
Is there a second?
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded to postpone. Is there any discussion of that motion?
I would think that the comments of the neighbors would be in the minutes, and they don't need to come back. I appreciate the comments, but I just, so from your perspective, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Yes, Commissioner Wiscombe.
Commissioner Burns, did you move that it be postponed to the next meeting? Because I believe it should be postponed until they provide a landscape plan that shows what the trees would be replaced.
Yeah, Mr. Downey?
Commissioner Hull and Wiscombe, they have provided those plans. I would always recommend a motion to postpone until the materials are provided as opposed to a specific timeline. But again, I do want to address the concern about the birds. If at a future meeting it's approved to remove these trees, we might want to consider allowing that outside of bird nesting season.
Okay. Well, let's not get into the details since we are postponing the item. But does the maker of the motion want to be more specific in terms of the postponement?
Since staff has seen it, I'm assuming by the next meeting, the Street Tree Advisory Committee will have looked at their plans and will have a recommendation made. Is that correct?
Chair Lerman Hall and Commissioner Burns, at this point, I already have information that some of the members might not be able to attend, so we may have to postpone that meeting, and it may run into the time frame for the Brown Act for this meeting. So I would prefer a more open motion.
Then I would like to either amend my motion, if that's correct, to that we meet on this after the Street Tree Advisory Committee has reviewed and met.
Okay. And made a recommendation
I
on this item?
agree with the amendment.
Okay. Is there any opposition to that amendment? No. Okay. So that's the motion. Now, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay. And that brings us to the end of the street tree items. Yes?
Larimore Hall, and I apologize. I should have suggested that we do this earlier, but I'd like to do it now. I see that Mr. Hannon is here. He's been sitting here patiently, and he is item number 9. Since all of the items before that are staff reports, I would like to suggest that we take item number 9.
Is there any commissioners who object to amending the agenda in that way? No? Okay. All right, let's move to new business, the advisory committee interview and appointment. Mr. Hannon? So Mr. Hannon's application for the Arts and Crafts Show Advisory Committee is in our packets. Do people have any questions for Mr. Hannon?
Just a comment. I assume you're going to make a short presentation. I've seen you at the Arts and Crafts Advisory Show. I'm impressed with your comments you made before. I hope you do show up, and I hope we accept you.
Well, thank you. I would like to point out that the art show is a treasure to the city, and it's certainly a draw to tourists. And this is a city of artists, and I see it as a very important part of the entire city itself. And that's why I have a friend who is an artist, and I meet him every Sunday for breakfast, so I'm down there every Sunday, and I've gotten to know some of the other artists, and I was previously, an at-large member of the committee. And so they asked me to come back, and the other thing I'd like to stress is the amount of work that this committee does and the importance to the city itself, because we screen all the applicants, the artists, and we settle arguments, and it's a noble thing to do. So that's why I'm here.
Well, thank you very much for your interest. Would someone like to make a motion?
Since I'm the liaison, I'd love to make the motion and congratulate you, and and also my condolences too. I sit there.
Sorry, parking ticket.
Yeah, I make the motion that we appoint Mr. Hannon as the at-large member of the Arts and Crafts Advisory Committee.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? No? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome back, I should say. Okay. So now let's move back to administrative and staff reports. Ms. Rapp?
Chair Larimore Hall and Commissioners, item number 5 is simply for your information. I've been keeping you informed via email, but just formally wanted to let you know that the City Clerk's Office received 2 appeals of your decision made on May 19th related to the West Beach Music and Arts Festival. And that appeal hearing will be held at City Council next Tuesday at 4 o'clock. And and there will be an opportunity for commissioners, since there was a split decision, for each of those opinions to make a presentation to City Council, and I believe that you have worked out who will do that. And that's pretty much it. I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. The next item is a report on the Lower West Side Neighborhood Block Party.
And we have Susan Young and Pete Leva with our Neighborhood and Outreach Services who will be giving this report.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. I'm Susan Young, and I'm with Pete Leva, Neighborhood and Outreach Services staff and coordinator. And we're here, as stated, to give a brief report on the Lower West Side Neighborhood Block Party. As you probably recall, the Neighborhood and Outreach Services section was created last year in an effort to do specifically to provide programs and outreach services to strengthen the families, to improve outcomes for children and youth and teens, and to enhance neighborhoods and create stronger communities. As part of the assignment that Pete and I have is specifically to work in the Lower West Side neighborhoods. And as you're probably aware, in those neighborhoods, it's highly dense. It's a lot of low-income families with children and youth and teens. and then they are working families as well. So in order to enhance some of the neighborhood services, one of the things we did was to host a neighborhood block party. And so I'm going to turn it over to Pete, who's going to talk about that party.
Thank you, Susan, and Mr. Chair and Commissioners. As you know, the Lower West Side is a highly dense area, and we rely on certain parts of the neighborhood to do various activities. At one time, we did have the Lower West Side Community Center. As you know, with the budgets, we had to eliminate funding for that center that we had off of Cornell and Rancheria. But on June 5th, 2010, at Parque de los Niños, we had a block party. We had 150 adults and children who attended. We had $900 in donation material, which came from the Unity Shop. They provided 2 adult bikes, excuse me, 2 children's bikes, and 2 girls' bikes, along with Emilio Handel up at McKinley School, who donated the helmets for the bikes. And we also received some large kites for a raffle. We had, we had 132 hours of volunteer time donated from our volunteers, advisory group, youth council, Managua, and some neighbors from the community. Total cost for us city was estimate $73 plus staff time. Some of the participants that were there at the block party included our Unity Shop. Again, without the Unity Shop stepping forward and providing the bikes and providing drinks for this festivity, it would have been an attraction for the neighborhood and families. Family Service Agency attended, and they provided services to those families that needed counseling, referrals to the Unity Shop, and immediate type of intervention programs that we do not have. American Indian Health Services, they were a big part of the event there because they brought a medical staff along with the CAL, we'll get into afterwards, that provided services to the families there. Diabetes Center, Managua Youth Group, Fun on the Run, McKinley Elementary School, Food Bank of Santa Barbara, and our AOK program. And we also brought out the Fun in the Sun activity van. But the largest attraction here, as you can see, is we have Nick Ferreira, our chair, who I think is having a hot dog there. Our volunteers, we have let's see, to the far left is Mrs. Cruz, and they're providing information about our brown bag program for seniors and also information about the advisory board. To the far right, we have a father and a son who just want a bike along with the helmet. On the bottom down there, that's Susana, who's one of our volunteers, who's always there helping out, and she came and performed, and the little boy that was there, as soon as they turned on the festive music, he started dancing right there, so it was very festive. And as you can see in the back there's Susan right there enjoying it, and she was just taking in the moment. And to the far right is the CAL. That stands for, what was that again? Clinic on Wheels. And they provided immediate service to families, and because of that service, you can see that there was a tremendous need in the neighborhood there for those services. Next page. Again, to the far left, we have Nick. I'm not sure if he's eating another hot dog there, but we do have some families there that received an adult bike. Background, a lot of youth, as Susan mentioned. Down below, we did have some other raffle items that we gave the little kids that didn't get any bikes. To the very far right, we have our committee members, the American Indian Services staff, our volunteers, new, hopefully incoming in board member and her son, committee member of the Lower West Side, and her son who came to volunteer. And the 2 individuals there in the scrubs are actually Army military staff who volunteered their time from the Chumash Casino to come down into the neighborhood and provide services. To the very far bottom down there, that's Juan Cerna, his grandmother, his mom, his niece, and his new little brother who came, and they've always come out and volunteer their time to the food distribution, any events that we have in the neighborhood. In closing, I would like to just say that this was a well-received event in the neighborhood. Families that were in need really welcomed having us there. In addition to service providers, without our service providers that participated, this event would not happen. In addition to the Youth Council, Managua, Commissioner Caseberg was there, our Lower West Side Advisory Board. Again, this was a well-received, organized event. We're looking at researching and strategically planning other activities for the neighborhood based on the needs of the community so that we're not depleting resources. We're actually using the resources for those needs in the community. Again, thank you very much, and that concludes our report.
Thank you. Are there questions? Yes.
Well, I'd like to just compliment Ms. Young and Mr. Leyva for their dedication to the Lower West Side. It's just incredible to see the smiles and the happiness and the good times that are generated at this event and other events I've attended down there. I think one thing you could say about, weren't there a couple people that were diagnosed with some specific health problems?
Yes, the medical staff were able to assist two individuals immediately because they weren't aware that they had diabetes. They also saw with a partner agency, the eyeglass company. I didn't mention them. They have a collaborative effort where they work with the CAL, and they were able to provide free eye exams for families and youth and provide free eyeglasses for youth in the community, which was great because there were a lot of kids in the neighborhood that didn't know that they needed to get glasses. So,
good work.
Any other questions or comments? I would say I should have stopped by, but I was in, that's my neighborhood, and I was walking precincts that day, and I saw the party and tried to wave at people, but nobody saw me. So, but I should have. Yeah, basically it was a walk by. But anyway, thank you very much for the report and for all of your work. The next item on the agenda is an update on upcoming summer special events.
And Recreation Manager Judith McCaffrey will present this report.
Wasn't there. Maybe it's at the bottom. No. Back up. Okay. Okay, all right. Chair Larimore Hall and Commissioners, my name is Judith McCaffrey, Recreation Manager. And I'm here this evening to give you a brief update on some upcoming special events this summer. As I'm sure you're all aware, summer has begun, and as has the countdown to 3 anticipated summer events here in our city: concerts in the park, 4th of July, and our Children's Fiesta Parade. The Concerts in the Park season 2010 is opening July 1st. This year's program is actually presented by Target, and staff has been very successful in increasing donations, grants, and sponsorships. So the series has been increased by 2 concerts over last season. The program is held in Chase Palm Park, and it is free to the public on Thursday nights, 6 to 8:30 p.m. Our opening night, we're going to feature rhythm and blues band Cafe R&B. That's Los Angeles based. It should be a great evening, so I encourage the public to come out and join us that evening. We also have a variety of performers for the rest of the summer that I just wanted to briefly highlight. We try to have a great variety of music to appeal to a wide audience. Our second concert is a all-female group from San Francisco called Blame Sally, and they are folk pop singers. Should be a great evening. We have our always most favorite concert group, Captain Cardiac and the Coronaries, that has a great 50s, 60s rock and roll show. We're also bringing Hawaii's most popular group, Hapa, from Hawaii to perform, and they'll be performing at Chase Palm Park with a group of local hula dancers. The show should be a great time. We're including some Western swing with Cowbop. And Max Bennett is coming here with his contemporary jazz group, Private Reserve. And if you haven't heard of Max Bennett, he's played with pretty much everyone. And just to name a few, Elvis and Frank Sinatra and Ray Charles and Ella Fitzgerald, Celine Dion, Quincy Jones, you name it. So he's bringing his own private band, so Private Reserve should be great. And then lastly, we always end up with a bang with some Zydeco, with Porterhouse Bob and Down to the Bone. So should be a great summer. And our summer wouldn't be possible without the generosity of a number of donors. And I just wanted to highlight some of those sponsors this year. We were able to raise $20,000 in sponsorship, $5,000 in grants. We received $10,000 from our generous concert attendees to fund this program, and approximately $145,000 in in-kind services, and that includes advertising, hotel rooms, printing, reduced sound services. So it's all these people that make this program possible, because this program is funded entirely by donations, grants, and sponsorships. So I wanted to recognize them for their generosity.
Could you repeat those figures again, just
Sure.
so they sink in?
Be happy to. That includes $20,000 in sponsorship, mainly from the Santa Ynez Band of Chumash Indians and Target. The Tobes Foundation granted us a grant this year, as they have in previous years. And we have a number of in-kind sponsors like K-Lite, K-Tide, Santa Barbara Independent, Daily Sound, SantaBarbaraParent.com, Hotel Marmonte, XL5 Productions, Santa Barbara Family Life Magazine, and Hagen Printing Typecraft that produces our concert brochure. And so, yes, that was $145,000 of in-kind and $10,000 in donations to round that out. Of course, we have the 4th of July, and that's just right around the corner, too. City department staff, including staff from the Parks and Recreation Department, has been working closely with volunteers from the Sparkle organization to help organize Sparkle's 2010 event, which is held down on West Beach. Of course, it's Sunday, July 4th, and we encourage the public to come down and enjoy the food and beverage booze down there starting at 11 a.m. At 7 p.m., they have a patriotic 50-piece band that will be entertaining, and the fireworks show will start at 9 p.m. and run for approximately 20 minutes off West Beach. So should be a great event. Also during that weekend, the Santa Barbara Arts and Crafts Show will also be open Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to dusk. And the 4th of July parade, organized by the Spirit of 76 Foundation, will start down State Street at 1 p.m. And one of the most favorite events for a lot of us during Fiesta Week is the Children's Fiesta Parade. This is the one event of that celebration that's organized by the Parks and Recreation Department. And this year we'll be celebrating our 80th anniversary. It's free to participate, and typically we have approximately 2,500 children and their families each year. Applications are available now for those who are interested in participating, with the deadline being July 9th. And this, as I mentioned, this event is organized by the Parks and Recreation Department. And then on parade day, community volunteers and Parks and Recreation staff, approximately 50 people, come together to run the parade. And of course, at the end, all the participants receive ice cream courtesy of Marburg Industries. So, and for the public, I'll pass on our number here for more information on these programs and events. You can call our main number at 564-5418. Of course, our website is chock full of information at sbparksandrecreation.com. You can also find our department on Facebook, Concerts in the Park, and City of Santa Barbara Parks and Recreation. And I'll make a last note to all those parents who still might be looking for an activity for your children during the summer, the Parks and Recreation Department has a great variety of fun, affordable, and great summer camps and clinics for youth. And we do still have some spaces available. So if you're still looking for something for your child to do this summer, give us a call and we'll be able to send you in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. There's a question.
Ms. McCaffrey, one question on the concerts in the park. For people that haven't been to them yet, do you want to kind of give a breakdown of how early they ought to show up if they want to show up and get halfway decent seats, and about how many people show up?
Well, good question, Commissioner Burns. I would say that concerts now, they've been going on for 12 years, so the attendance ranges from anywhere to 5,000 to 8,000 given the type of music. Concert setup begins at 12 noon, so you can't bring down your blankets or chairs prior to that time, but at 12 noon you can start setting up. And people are encouraged to bring low-back chairs or blankets to sit on the grass, and they bring a picnic dinner and, you know, your friends, your kids. It's a really family-friendly event.
Any other questions, comments? No? Thank you for a great report. This looks like a great summer. All right, the next item is Parks and Recreation budget for discussion.
Commissioners, I thought I would just give you an update since Council gave direction to staff on the fiscal year 2011 budget last week, and staff is now preparing, Finance Department is preparing all those final budget documents. The budget should be adopted next Tuesday by City Council. So the changes that were made in that meeting, first off, a recognition that the labor negotiations with SEIU will affect 2 of our employees who will now have their jobs retained, which we're grateful for. And they were proposed for layoff. So we definitely will still be losing all the vacant positions, but these were 2 people who will still be employed come July 1st. And then Council had as a priority to find the money to fund Ortega Park Recreation Swim. And so although they made a number of budget items that on the assumption that they will get the labor concessions that they have not received as of this time, Council did say that because the summer programs start now, that they would fund those in full. They also expressed a desire and directed staff to include it in the budget, the funding for the vacant grounds maintenance worker 1, or 2, I'm sorry, I can't remember. Anyway, that had the outcome of the 4 restrooms being closed. Council had as a priority to restore that so that restrooms were available to the people. That also affects the maintenance level on Cabrillo Boulevard. But that position is dependent upon negotiations coming to a conclusion that provides the savings in the budget that Council then would has authorized for that position. So we will stay tuned on that one. So those were the changes that affected Parks and Recreation. So I just wanted to update you on that, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
No questions? No? Seeing none? Thank you.
The one other thing that I would just mention is that staff the department has a number of vacancies. We've had additional vacancies since we developed the budget. We're anticipating that those vacancies will not be able to be filled, or with very rare exception. And so staff is at this time looking at how to restructure and how we'll respond to that. So I just wanted to let you know that we'll be coming back to you with some information on changes in services based on vacancies that will be held vacant this year. Okay?
Now there's a question. Yes.
And you may not know the answer, but and Judith brought it up, and I kind of didn't think about it then. How are the summer programs going? Are most of them full, or just a few that aren't full? I mean, that's a kind of a budget item. How are we going with what our plans were for summer? If anybody wants to take a guess on that.
Judith will. Thanks.
Chair Larimore Hall, Commissioner Burns. We're approximately 8% down where we were from last year. I think a little under 100 registrations. But thanks to the results of the Condor fundraiser, we actually have just awarded 45 scholarships, so those will actually come into the mix. And so we're actually feel like we're looking pretty good for the summer. And also, just as a little tagline off what Nancy had just said a minute ago, I'm pleased to say that the Santa Barbara Sunrise Rotary Club has agreed to funding the West Beach wading pool, the remainder of that. So that pool will actually also be open this summer.
Other questions, comments? No, well, that exhausts our agenda, so a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
Any opposition? Seeing none, we stand adjourned.